Welcome to the Trust Factor Radio, bringing you interviews and insights to unlock the power of the subconscious mind to create authority, credibility, and trust. With your host, the Authority Architect and best-selling author, Neil Howe.
Hello, welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today my guest is Chris Berkley. He is the founder of Chris Berkley Digital Marketing, and he helps small to medium-sized businesses better understand their organic traffic and develop strategies to improve it. Chris is an independent consultant who owns his own company and lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Well, excited to hear everything that you have to talk about when it's talking about getting traffic to a website. It's definitely a problem that many people have. Everybody needs more traffic. Welcome to the show, Chris Berkley.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I appreciate you having me and looking forward to talking more about it.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself first and what got you into this business.
Definitely. So my background is actually in retail sales originally. After college, I graduated in a not so perfect economy. I was working a lot of retail, selling things and kind of understanding how people work in that regard. And then I got into marketing after that. I started with a couple of smaller consultants and agencies working there. I worked at agencies for a little bit, doing SEO and a little bit of social media and website analytics. And then about a year and a half ago, I started my own company, first as a side business. And 4 months ago, I took it full time. And then that's where we are today is, working with clients to improve their digital marketing, from the SEO and analytics side of things.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on going out yourself and starting your own company. That's always a nice thing to do. It's a lot of work, but there's a lot of benefits to that as well. And from starting in retail sales, I'm sure you have a very good understanding of what the customer's needs are. So that definitely puts you in a great position to help your clients. Speaking of your clients, what kind of clients? We mentioned small to medium size. Is that really what you stick with?
Yeah, for the most part. I used to work at larger agencies that would kind of cover the medium to big business end of the spectrum. I realized, as an independent consultant, I don't have any employees right now. It's not something I'm looking to do. So I'm working with smaller to medium-sized businesses and then trying to bring that enterprise level strategy down to them. At a little bit lower price point, which of course is important. It's not so much about the size of the company that I work with. It's really critical that when I'm initially talking to them, that the people I'm talking to and the people I'll be working with really have the right attitude towards marketing, and specifically digital and SEO. Just kind of making sure that they know that we're going to be collaborating and that it's a team effort. And that they have realistic expectations for what their growth will look like.
Yes, getting that mental part of knowing that they need to market and that it's one of the most important things that they can do for their business is very important, that's for sure. So, what kind of problems are these people coming to you with? What do they really need help with most?
Sure. So it's a couple different things, or a lot of different things, maybe. Some of the most common things that come up are that they obviously they want to improve the amount of traffic and revenue or leads that they get. That's really common, and a lot of the times they don't necessarily understand the exactly right way to do that. And that may be, a lot of times I hear, well, we have a blog and we do some writing on it, but we're not 100% sure that what we're doing is working or how we need to adjust that. So I really like to work with companies that, like I said, have the right attitude towards digital and are already doing some of those things, and just need a little bit of strategy and help with the execution to make sure that they're doing it in an efficient way that drives results. Mm-hmm. I said,
do you see that? Do you see that often that companies are, they're trying to do stuff for themselves, but they don't really have a strategy or a way to measure if it is actually working?
Absolutely. That's probably one of the biggest things. And one of the first things I do when I start working with them is kind of coming in and saying, well, let's take stock of what you have now and how things currently work. In the sense of, where's your traffic coming from? What types of pages are earning you your traffic? What types of even keywords, are you ranking for, of course? And then figuring out based on that what we need to do going forward.
So what is the main issue that these businesses are looking to get solved? Is it ultimately a traffic issue for them, or are they just looking for any kind of way to get sales and profits?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a couple things. So some of the clients I work with, a fair number of them right now, are younger companies. They're in, maybe the 3 to 5 year old range. And they're in, proven business models, and they're doing well. They're not exactly startups per se, but they're looking for that growth to really start to take it to the next level and become a larger company. So especially when the growth goals are aggressive, we need to look at it and say, well, as a smaller player with lower authority in the industry, what can we do in order to get you there? In other scenarios, if it's an older company or a larger company, they may have experienced some sort of drop in traffic, either as a result of a website migration or redesign, or maybe an algorithm update. So sometimes we're coming in and I'm saying, well, we're looking to grow your traffic, sure, but we're looking to kind of fill in a hole that was created by some event that precipitated a loss.
Right. So what kind of things are you able to do for them to, get more traffic?
Yeah, well, I kind of bucket it into a couple different categories within SEO, right? So there's the content side of things. There is the technical side of it. There is, of course, linking, both on-site and off-site. And if it's relevant, there is, of course, the local SEO aspect or the international SEO aspect. So I'll come in and I'll work with a client. We'll talk initially, and I'll kind of do a brief audit and overview to figure out which areas they're strong in and which ones they're weak. And then that'll help me prioritize what we do first. In some cases, that may be, hey, you don't have a lot of content right now that's really keyword rich, or that would rank for things that are meaningful to you. So we need to create more of that. In other cases, it may be, well, your content's really strong and it's great, but you have technical issues that are preventing from Google or Bing or search engines from crawling the site and being able to find and index those pages. So at the beginning of the project, I always kind of sit down and say, let's look at these different buckets and figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then go from there.
So talking about the content aspect of things, how often should small business company, or let's just take a local company for an example, say a local chiropractor, how often should they be blogging or adding new content to their website?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think with the local aspect, it's a little bit different because when so if you're a chiropractor, you're really looking to target people that are in your local area. Someone who's 1,000 miles away really wouldn't be a valuable lead or a prospective, client patient for you. So with that being said, if you're creating this national level content that's targeting these more national focused keywords, you're probably going to be driving traffic and leads from all over the place. So in that regard, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, you need to be writing all these blog posts and creating a ton of content. I'd say you need to figure out what the more localized keywords are. The types of keywords that return local results and map pack results and things like that, to make sure that you're actually driving traffic from your customer base. If it's a larger company that targets, the entire country or a much larger area, then of course that national content would work. And, generally we try to produce as much as we can given their internal resources.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about the local company again, because these local companies, to me, are really the backbone of American business. They are the ones that keep things ticking along and are making the money and hiring people. So if it is a local chiropractor, what kind of content is going to attract that local area?
Yeah, so the key here becomes really looking at, when you're doing things like keyword research and determining what types of pages you need to have, it's of course figuring out what types of services people are looking for related to a chiropractor. I mean, of course, it would be great to rank for the word chiropractor because that's, a head term that people are looking for. But there's probably other things that people might be looking for, relevant to that. I don't have a great example of what that might be. But there's that, and then there's, of course, other things like making sure that you have pages for each of the different locations that you might have. If a chiropractor has, a couple different offices in the area, making sure that there are pages for those. And of course, business listings on Google and Bing. And then a lot of local starts to become, more offsite and looking at things like Yelp and Facebook and Foursquare and making sure that they have profiles set up on those, starting to get reviews for their company to show, how they can differentiate from other competitors in the local market. There's sort of a lot of that happens off of the website, with local focused clients.
Mm-hmm. All right. And what about some of the technical stuff? What technical issues do you see with many of the sites that you look at?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think technical is sort of the dark horse of the different types of SEO. I think it's misunderstood and overlooked by a lot of people. Some of the issues become, especially with older sites that have been around for a long length of time, there might be some a little bit of cleanup that needs to take place. Obviously, there's things like broken links and 404 errors. Sometimes we run into scenarios where there are island pages that you can't actually get to through the website. They exist on the internet, but you can't find them by navigating through the site. And search engines might find them through things like the XML sitemap or what have you. But making sure that if there's any island pages, we get links to those on the site, or if they're not used anymore, we get rid of those. It starts to get really technical when you run into possible issues with things like JavaScript or resources being blocked and Googlebot or BingBot not being able to crawl certain pieces of content on the site. Obviously, putting content in things like iframes becomes a big issue because iframes are, nearly impossible for search engines to crawl. So there's a whole lot of that too, and figuring out, making sure that the way the site is constructed allows search engines and people to of course, access the content.
Mm-hmm. And what difference does cleaning up the website do for ranking? Does it have a significant difference in the ranking algorithm if you've got a clean site versus one that needs help?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for one, if Googlebot or BingBot can't access your pages, there's no way that they'll be able to get crawled and ranked. So that's a really quick fix if that is the case. In other cases, what we find is sort of cleaning up things, getting rid of 404 errors and stuff like that lets search engines crawl it faster. And if they can crawl it faster and more easily, they can crawl more pages, and there's a better chance that those will get indexed. One of the things that I do pretty regularly is go look at all the clients' backlinks. And I'll pull all of their URLs that have backlinks built to them, and I'll crawl them just to make sure that none of them return a 404 error. Because if you have a backlink out there and it points to a 404, you're not getting that equity. So that's kind of a quick way to get a backlink that you basically already have, but you aren't getting credit for. So those things have definitely tangible results, depending on how severe the issues are.
And how important now are things like site speed and time on site?
Yeah, so they're becoming definitely more important. There was, of course, just a algorithm update that came out this month that is, rewarding a speed-based algorithm update that rewards sites that are faster. And even if there weren't an algorithm update, it's just good to have a fast site. No one's ever gone to a website and said, "Wow, this page loaded too quickly." So there's that. And then also engagement metrics. I think the industry is still sort of trying to figure out and clarify exactly how this works. But we've known for some time that pogo sticking is a problem. Pogo sticking is when someone lands on a search results page. They might click on the first result. They don't see what they want. So they click the back button. They go back to the search results. They click on another result. So there's tangible evidence that search engines are looking at time on site and time on page as a metric for how valuable that or how helpful that page is, how relevant. So yeah, there's things we're trying to work on now that are not strictly for the algorithm, but also for the user experience. Giving people more information, adding multimedia content like audio, podcasts, of course, video content, and all those things contribute to, more time on site.
Yes, definitely. What are the most important things that Google is looking at right now in order to rank a site on the first page of Google?
Wow, that's a big question. I would say right now, content is probably more important than it's ever been. And I know people say content is king. That's definitely true. But I think really getting into sort of the user experience of it and taking a deeper dive, I've found that, long form content still does really well, especially if it's constructed properly with H headings and it's easy to digest. I think content is becoming increasingly important, and links even might be a little less important than they were, even a few years ago. There's examples where people talk about industries that are more illicit, like, people talk about pornography. They say, well, people aren't linking to pornography websites, right? So how would Google start to understand how to rank those? So if there's an industry where backlinks just aren't happening, and pornography is probably a terrible example, I would never take on a client there. But, what do you rely on if backlinks aren't there? And that really starts to be, content and the on-site experience. Yeah,
that's an interesting point, because whether we want to admit it or not, I think the pornography sites are about 10% of all traffic that goes to the internet. But like you said, we don't necessarily see links to those kinds of pages. So how are Google ranking them? And it's, I guess there's a lot of time on site there.
Yeah, well, right, definitely. And I've had conversations about this because it kind of sounds peculiar. You don't really think you're going to be interviewing someone or be on a podcast talking about pornography websites. But I really like just great marketing. And the funny part is, if you look at, like Pornhub, they've done some really funny, interesting stuff that actually has earned them backlinks. Different campaigns that they've had, like for different causes and supporting charities and stuff like that. It's not something you really expect to see. So, there is some of that out there, but there's other industries too where, backlinks just really aren't happening in that way. So Google and Bing and other search engines have to figure out, if there aren't links, how do we rank these things? And I think that's where the user experience and the on-site, is really important.
So what kind of misconceptions are there that you come across with the clients that you talk to about the SEO industry?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is the length of time that it takes to get results is really a misconception. Everybody says SEO takes time. I don't think that clients always fully understand how much. I kind of liken it to investing, in the sense that you're making an investment now and you're not expecting a return tomorrow. You're expecting a return, in maybe 3 to 6 months, maybe a year, depending on, the industry and the site and the client you're working with. So I think that's the toughest thing. And I have clients that fortunately, are on, longer projects that I've been working with for, like a year and change. And the first 6 months, we saw some results, but not to the degree that they were hoping for. And then, at that 1 year mark, things have really started to take off. And now they're seeing the results that I told them they would. And they're understanding, that value and that ROI.
It's a big ask for a lot of companies, unless they really understand the benefit of putting all the work into the marketing and waiting 6 to 12 months to really see the results. But it's worth it in the end. Speaking of the work, it is a lot of work that you have to do. What kind of process do you go through when you take on a new client?
Absolutely. The first thing is always, there's a lot of discussion even before they become a client. I am pretty selective about who I work with, just because I want to make sure that I can actually get results for them. I don't want to take a client's money and not be able to drive a meaningful return. So we're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about expectations, what type of growth they expect to see. We're talking about resources and budget, mostly resources. Do you have people who can write a blog post if I recommend it? Do you have a web developer that can make technical edits to the site? If we need to change a template, is that doable, possible? How long will it take? So it's asking a lot of those questions up front, just to make sure that we can actually, do the project. And I think if expectations are correct and the resources are in place, that eliminates a lot of roadblocks. And then we can really sort of jump in.
Help the listeners understand, Chris, really just what goes on. What kind of work is actually done when somebody hires an SEO company to do it properly.
Sure. Yeah, on the tactical level, I'll kind of run through the different kind of buckets that I mentioned before. On the technical side, there's obviously doing a technical audit, which I think most consultants do these days, getting into, the nitty gritty of it, making sure that, there aren't errors on the site, that there's, schema markup and structured data, especially if you have video content, making sure that all the pages are included in the site maps and that Google and Bing can crawl the site and find everything efficiently. On the content side, it's really jumping in and starting to figure out where the traffic's coming from and what the areas are that are strong and the areas that are weak. A quick example, I have a client I'm working with now, they're e-commerce, and they do a good amount of traffic, good amount of revenue. But when we really dug in and looked at it, we figured out that a large percentage of it, probably 75% or more, was from branded keywords as a result of, other marketing initiatives that they're doing outside of SEO. So when that's the case, we want to start looking at, all right, well, how do we build out your non-branded traffic and create pages for that? Part of that's developing like a blog strategy, making sure that the blog is lucrative and that you're not just writing content that disappears into the abyss. We want to make sure the stuff you invest in actually gets read by people. So content's really huge. And, like I said, optimizing existing pages, recommending new ones, making sure that everything's sort of buttoned up and provides a good user experience. And then once we've really done the content and the technical is usually when I'll start to move on to linking, because I don't see a lot of purpose in starting to build a bunch of backlinks if you don't have keyword optimized content or if search engines can't crawl the site. And that'll come in a few forms, whether it's, just looking at getting your local citations in order with, platforms like Yelp and Foursquare and Facebook and so on and so forth, to more PR focused campaigns, even doing like scholarships and sponsorships and stuff like that.
So there's really a lot of work that goes into the first few months just to get the site to a place where it can welcome some new traffic and get some results from it.
Yeah, 100%. And, we're not going to do all those things at once, of course, just because it's a lot. So what we do is we prioritize. We say, all right, well, based on where you're at, and we kind of do a SWOT analysis, we look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We can look at those different buckets and say, all right, well, your technical acumen looks pretty good right now. If the site's built on something like WordPress or Magento, it's usually already in a better place than if it's on more of a proprietary CMS or custom built. Maybe we don't need to focus on technical right away. Maybe we should jump into content first and get that moving. And then once that's in the pipeline, come back and do technical. And the prioritization is really what separates great consultants from, not so great consultants.
Well, there are a lot of very good consultants out there, and there are many not so great consultants as well out there. Talk to me about some of the fears that people have about trying to find a legitimate SEO company to do the work for them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things sort of to watch out for, whether clients know it or not. And I'm always leery of anybody I see that promises X results in X length of time. I think anyone who says, pay for performance, it's not a model that I work off of. I think that's usually an indicator that they're, not as experienced at what they do. Anybody who, really talks about tactical things like keywords or rankings or getting to page one. I think we as an industry really need to come back and step back a little bit further and say, we need to rank for certain keywords and we'll do that, as part of our initiatives. But we really need to be focusing on things like revenue and leads and the stuff that actually makes clients money. Those are the metrics we really need to be looking at. So that's one of the first things I talk about is, what are your growth goals for revenue or leads? Who are your customers? What's the future look like? And I think, consultants that really start with stuff like what keywords do you want to rank for, is maybe a red flag that they don't have your best interests in mind.
Right. So what might hold somebody back if they've had a consultation? What might hold them back from actually taking action and having a company like yours do all the work for them and make sure everything is correct and they're showing up well? What are the hesitations that you feel from some companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm very upfront with people I talk to, and I tell them, like we talked about, you're not going to see results overnight with this. If you do need to see results overnight, you should be looking at things like paid advertising, either AdWords or Facebook or LinkedIn, other platforms like that. Even those you can't get up and running overnight, but they will be quicker. So that's a hesitation is, if clients look and say, well, we were really hoping to see more leads or revenue, in a month, SEO might not be what they need to be prioritizing. So that might stop that conversation sort of dead in its tracks. Others would be, if they don't have the resources to carry out some of the things I'm talking about. So if we're going to be doing technical and content initiatives, you almost always need a content writer, and you need a technical, like a web developer, a technical person who can actually make edits to the site. I don't do that because I'm not a developer. So I rely on someone who's familiar with, the platform the site's built on. And if they don't have those things in place, that might also stop the conversation a little bit and say, well, there's no point in working with me if you can't implement the things that I recommend.
Right, definitely.
And then there's always, budget can be a problem too, depending on, how small the client is and, what their expectation is time-wise for when they want to see results.
Right. And, that's a concern for everybody. If you only have a limited budget, you're looking to get some immediate results generally from that money that you have. So, putting it on pay-per-click or something like this, that might get you results quicker, but ultimately the SEO is a long play and it's going to be better in the long run for you. Talk about some of the clients that you have worked with that stick out in your mind. What kind of problems did they have when they came to you? What were you able to do for them? And ultimately, what was the success for that client?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have just a couple clients I'm working with right now that I've been working with that I'm really excited about. Like I said, one's an e-commerce client who's a couple years old and they're at a good size in their industry. They have a good customer base. They're figuring out, their marketing and they're really poised for aggressive growth. So right now we're looking at doing a lot of new content and optimizing existing content to support, new product releases. I love e-commerce, especially clients that have tangible products, because, then you can really do really great outreach and PR with it. Reaching out to editors, publications, reviewers, bloggers, and saying, hey, can we send you a little bit of this product and you can try it out and let us know your thoughts and maybe write something about it. So that's fantastic. We're just getting going with that, but we already have, a bunch of stuff in the pipeline. I work with another client who's in divorce support services, which is really interesting. He's got an interesting kind of startup, but it's a business that's running and profitable. And with that, when I started working with him, he had almost no content that was keyword targeted. It was, more like diary style blog posts. So for a year and a half now, we've been just focusing on writing stuff that's, really structured with H headings and targets specific topics that the audience is focused on. And that's been great. We're on track for this month, like 90% growth in traffic and 60% growth in sales and leads. So, that's been really great. And we're hoping to keep that up. Another one I'm working with right now is a lot more technical focus, where it's a website that's just kind of been through the ringer over the years. It was, acquired from another owner who had initially built it. It's very content heavy. And with that, we're going through and we're finding that traffic had kind of gradually slid over time because of technical issues. There were a lot of island pages, like I mentioned before, pages that they're present on the internet, but you can't get to them by clicking through the website anywhere. Like you'd never be able to find these pages. So, we're going through and we're looking and saying, all right, well, your traffic's been down by anywhere from 10 to 20% compared to last year. And we did a lot of this work, and the first month kind of after doing it, it was up by 7%. So in that case, we're not, we're sort of digging ourselves out of a hole before we can proactively grow.
Yeah, excellent. Well, that's some great results and a few different case studies there, a few different problems that people have been having that they just really need that consultative eye to get that fix. So somebody listening here wants to reach out to you, Chris. What is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, best way if they want to reach out is to email me. It's chris@chrisberkley.com. You can also go to my website. It's just chrisberkley.com. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Berkley Bikes. And any of those three ways are fantastic to get in touch.
Excellent. Well, I've enjoyed the interview today. There's a lot of gems in there, some great information, lots of things to really think about if you're looking to get SEO done for your business. I think the technical part is getting more and more important with Google making all these new updates and algorithm changes that seem to be focusing on speed and mobile as well. So you got to make sure that your site structure is looking good these days. But that's a lot to think about for a business owner. Definitely need somebody to do the work because it is a lot of work. Chris Berkley, thank you very much for being my guest on Trust Factor Radio today.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time, Neil. Thank you very much.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to the Trust Factor Radio with Neil Howe. To learn about the resources mentioned in the show and to listen to past episodes, go to thetrustfactorradio.com. To get a copy of the book, The Trust Factor, go to thetrustfactorbook.com. If you are ready to act now and build your authority, credibility, and trust, schedule a consultation with Neil at theauthorityarchitect.com.